Welcome to The Eye Opener. I'm your host, Michael Lewis. A desperate wife didn't give up on her husband even after the hospital had. She filed a lawsuit requesting the hospital to treat her husband with ivermectin and won. Biden firmly defended the Afghanistan withdrawal mission and called it a success. However, a different story was told in the last days of the evacuation. In a secret text message exchange, an Army colonel wrote, "We are abandoning American citizens." Chase Bank has walked back its decision. It said the cancellation of Michael Flynn's credit cards was an error. However, the blaze made an even bigger discovery in the cancellation saga. Okay, my friends, let's take a closer look together. A Butler County judge in Ohio ordered Westchester Hospital to immediately administer ivermectin to a COVID-19 patient in critical condition. Jeffrey Smith, 51, is a Verizon wireless engineer in Butler County. According to the lawsuit filed by his wife, Julie, Smith tested positive for COVID-19 on July 9th. He was then admitted to Westchester Hospital, part of the University of Cincinnati's health network, on July 15th and moved into the ICU. Smith's condition continued to decline. He was placed on a ventilator 2 weeks later on August 1st. By August 19th, the ventilator was operating at 80% volume, with Smith's chances of survival dropping to less than 30%. By that time, the hospital claimed to have exhausted all options in its COVID-19 treatment protocol. However, Julie could not give up on her husband, even if the hospital had. She had read about some lawsuits reported by the Chicago Tribune and the Buffalo News where patients in a severe condition from COVID-19 recovered after receiving ivermectin. These patients had to win lawsuits forcing their hospitals to treat them with ivermectin. And in these cases, all the plaintiffs were represented by attorney Ralph Lorigo, chairman of New York's Erie County Conservative Party. Julie demanded the hospital treat her husband with ivermectin and offered to release them from any and all responsibility. But the hospital refused. She then sought medical advice from Dr. Fred Wagshaw, who later prescribed the drug, but the hospital still refused. Time was quickly passing while her husband's condition kept deteriorating. In the end, Julie reached out to attorney Lorigo and filed a lawsuit against Westchester. She said, with absolutely nothing to lose, with little to no risk, and with the defendant likely to begin palliative care, there's no basis to refuse Wagshaw's order of prescription to administer ivermectin. Smith's still very lucky. He has a loving wife who has been relentlessly fighting for him and earned the treatment she wanted. How many COVID-19 patients in critical condition, after having exhausted all options the hospital could provide, weren't able to be treated with ivermectin or other means outside the protocol that could have saved their lives? Actually, saving a life should always be put above protocols. On August 31st, President Joe Biden defended his handling of the withdrawal from Afghanistan. "This is the way the mission was designed," Biden said, referring to the messy, chaotic, and ultimately unanimously criticized evacuation. Yet there are so many contradictions in Biden's first public remarks after ending the 20-year war. On the one hand, he touted the evacuation as one of the biggest airlifts in history for taking out more than 120,000 individuals from Kabul and called the mission an extraordinary success. On the other hand, Biden said he takes responsibility for the chaotic withdrawal. And while Biden said he takes responsibility, he blamed the Afghan military and government for collapsing against the Taliban and for putting the security of Americans and Afghans at risk. Moments later, Biden cast some of the blame on the Trump administration, saying that it was then President Donald Trump who had struck a deal with the Taliban to pull out by May 1st. Repeatedly blaming others is not something Americans would expect from a president who claims to be taking responsibility. One of the biggest criticisms of the withdrawal is that hundreds of Americans have been left behind. Reports were saying as early as Saturday, August 28th, that the gates to the Kabul airport were already closed. According to Central Command General Frank McKenzie, no Americans were able to evacuate on the final 5 flights. Given so many Americans and tens of thousands of Afghan allies were still trapped in the country, extending the withdrawal deadline should have been an obvious and legitimate option. But the Biden administration didn't do that. In fact, from the start, the administration had signaled that it was not committed to getting every American out, although later on, under pressure, Biden said he would. But to keep that promise and evacuate every American required an extraordinary effort as well as more time. Biden remained bullish on the departure date. He said, quote, "Leaving August 31st is not due to an arbitrary deadline. It was designed to save American lives." He said he was not going to extend a forever exit and noted the decision was based on, quote, "unanimous recommendations of his civilian and military advisors." This seems to be another major contradiction. Republican lawmaker Mike Gallagher, who proposed a withdrawal transparency bill for post-war evacuations, said during a press conference Monday, quote, "Last week I actually had a moment of hope because we had a briefing with the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, high-level officials in the Biden administration behind closed doors. And in that briefing, a lot of our Democratic colleagues actually pushed back quite forcefully on the August 31st withdrawal date, pleading in some cases with the administration not to adhere to the arbitrary date and abandon hundreds, if not thousands, of Americans, leaving them behind enemy lines, leaving them with the threat of being taken hostage. Where's the unanimous recommendation to keep the deadline as Biden claimed? Biden said most of the 100 to 200 Americans left are dual citizens, longtime Afghan residents, and originally decided to stay because of their family roots in Afghanistan. He said there's no deadline for them to leave the country. His administration remains committed to getting them out if they want to. Let's switch to the spokesman for the Pentagon, John Kirby. He also made comments yesterday on the Americans left behind. However, contrary to statements from the White House and the State Department, Kirby said it's not clear how many remain. He also used the word stranded to describe the situation. During an exchange with a reporter last week, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said it's irresponsible to say Americans are stranded. The word stranded means those Americans want to leave the country but have no means to. Kirby said, quote, "It's not completely unlike the way we do it elsewhere around the world." He added the government is going to be more in the diplomatic and economic lanes. Right now, the Pentagon doesn't really see a military involvement. Isn't using military force a much quicker, more powerful, and proactive way to get Americans out? Regardless, the Biden administration chose to negotiate with the Taliban through diplomatic and economic incentives going forward. How long will you expect this to take to get everyone out? National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said it is possible that the administration would provide financial assistance to the Taliban, and long-term economic and development assistance would be provided if it keeps its pledges made to the United States, including safe passage for Americans and Afghans. It's such good news for the terrorist organization. Not only does the Taliban face no consequences for breaking the withdrawal agreement, it could actually get paid by the U.S. with Americans as bargaining chips. Text messages between U.S. military commanders and private citizens during the final days of the rescue tell a completely different story. Michael Yan is a former Special Forces soldier and war correspondent. He was working with independent networks and the military to evacuate stranded Americans. Yan told of a heart-wrenching scene over the weekend as the military prepared to exit Afghanistan on August 30th. A group of Americans, a woman and 3 children, were abandoned at the Kabul airport, pleading for help as military officials told them they were finished with evacuations. They were waving their passports and screaming, "I'm American." "We are abandoning American citizens," an Army colonel responded on Sunday in frustration in a series of text messages with Michael Yan. As the soldiers prepared to leave Kabul, these Americans scattered to safe houses to avoid being captured. Yan wrote a scathing email to an Army major whose team had tried to coordinate the rescue before abandoning it. "You guys left American citizens at the gates of the Kabul airport. 3 empty jets paid for by volunteers were waiting for them. You and I talked on the phone. I told you where they were, gave you their passport images and my email and phone number, and you left them behind." Yan added, "We get them to the gate and the U.S. Army completely fails at this, saying, 'Oh, we can't do it because the State Department tells us we can't do it.'" Senator Ron Johnson raised concerns in a letter on Monday to the Pentagon that Americans had been knowingly and willingly abandoned. He called the withdrawal an abysmal failure, the exact opposite of an extraordinary success. Johnson said, quote, "What we've been hearing from people working the evacuation is completely different from the administration's rosy spin." The senator questioned if the Biden administration was misleading the public. And coming up, we have House Democrats blocking the Afghan withdrawal transparency bill. Biden sued over transgenders in sports, and Chase Bank said it made a mistake canceling General Flynn's credit card. But before we continue, please hit that like button and subscribe. And most importantly, share this video with your friends and family. As we know, word of mouth is the most effective way to spread the truth. And also, if you want to help and support the Eye Opener, please consider donating to the show or purchase a mug that matters. You can find the link in the description below. And as always, your support is greatly appreciated. Salute. In the House, Democrats blocked Mike Gallagher's bill on Tuesday. The bill was to put new obligations on the White House and military leaders. The measures would have required the Biden administration and military to send daily reports to Congress on the number of Americans trapped in Afghanistan. It commits U.S. troops to Afghanistan until every U.S. citizen who wants to leave is able to leave. It also urges the president not to recognize the Taliban terrorists as a legitimate government. Yesterday, congressmen met in the first session since the terrorist bombing near Kabul airport that killed 13 American soldiers. Democrats silently shot down the motion by denying Republicans to speak about the legislation. This was the bill's second failure in the House. On August 24th, lawmakers were called to an emergency session to vote on the Democrats' infrastructure legislation, the $3.5 trillion budget resolution. Early in that session, Gallagher put forward a motion to suspend considerations on the infrastructure deal to instead consider voting on extending the withdrawal deadline. Democrats quickly dismissed the proposal. Gallagher and other GOP members addressed the failure of their second attempt. He said last week, Democrats and Republicans had the opportunity to prevent the administration from withdrawing troops on the arbitrary August 31st date. Behind closed doors, this is exactly what many Democrats said they wanted. They pushed back on the administration, they begged and pleaded with the president to abandon the departure date. However, Democrats don't have the gut or will to openly say this under the watch of the American public. They must lack sincerity in their words of bringing every American home. Moving to domestic matters, attorneys general from 20 states filed a lawsuit against the Biden administration for allowing biological males to participate on girls' teams and a few other highly controversial issues regarding gender identity. The Supreme Court's decision in Bostock versus Clayton County said employers cannot terminate workers because of their gender identity or sexuality. The Department of Education, DOE, and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC, attempted to leverage the decision on more issues concerning transgenderism, such as whether schools must allow biological males to compete on girls' sports teams, whether employers and schools may maintain sex-separated showers and locker rooms, and whether individuals may be compelled to use another person's preferred pronouns. The Supreme Court's decision actually didn't address any of those issues. The lead of the lawsuit, Tennessee Attorney General Herbert Slattery, said that the two federal agencies were in fact changing laws, which is exclusively Congress's prerogative. The lawsuit argues that issues covered in the guidance are highly controversial and localized. Despite not having the authority, the DOE and the EEOC try to resolve these sensitive questions in an authoritative manner without providing an opportunity for public participation. The 20 states are asking the court to declare the guidance by the two agencies invalid and unlawful, and to prohibit it from being enforced. It's an about face. Chase Bank has apologized for canceling Lieutenant General Michael Flynn's credit cards. It now claims, quote, "We made an error." Flynn posted an image of the letter on his Telegram group on Sunday, which says Chase is closing his credit cards because continuing the relationship creates a possible reputation risk to the company. Chase also warned that other accounts under a different name or address may also be closed. Is this what they want us to believe is an error? The big bank was purposely canceling them. But things quickly backfired. Flynn has a large group of supporters. On Telegram, he has over 280,000 followers. The news of the cancellation went viral. That would be some real reputational risk to the bank. 2 days after the letter was posted, Chase reached out to the Blaze and said it had reversed course. "We contacted our customer to let her know that we made an error and we apologize for any inconvenience this caused." But wait, we all thought Michael Flynn was a bank customer. Why did the statement say her? The Blaze looked into this. In fact, Flynn didn't say that the Chase letter was addressed to him in his post. He only accused Chase of, quote, "persecuting my family and I." The recipient's name was blacked out in the letter. The Blaze took some extraordinary measures to try to figure this out. They magnified the erased sections, adjusted the contrast, and filtered out the black. They noticed the letters to the left of Flynn didn't appear to be Michael or Mike. Rather, they may be part of the name Lori, who is Flynn's wife. General Flynn thanked everyone for their unwavering support. Now, he said, if Chase had any common sense and gave serious thought to the current environment, instead of attacking my family because of our differing political views, they should immediately create a fund for the recently and tragically killed service members and those family members left behind. Trust me, the heart and soul of America will never be broken. We the people will prevail. And that's it for today, my friends. Check out the playlist right here for more eye-opening content. You can join me in our Eye Opener Telegram chat room and follow me on Newmaker, Gab, and Parler. Don't forget, please sign up to the email list so that we can stay in touch. I'd like to thank you all, and I'll see you next time.